My fiancée said, I need to explore my options before we marry. I replied, go ahead. Then I explored my option to cancel everything. She was shocked when the venue called about the cancellation. I, 32 male, am writing this from my couch, which until last week was our couch. It feels bigger now, or maybe I just feel smaller. It's a weird, hollowed-out feeling, but it's also quiet, calm, even. It's the quiet of a switch being flipped. 3 weeks ago, I was the happiest man alive. My fiancée, Stephanie, 29, and I had just put the deposit down on a gorgeous, rustic barn venue for our wedding next fall. We'd been together for 5 years, lived together for 2. This was it. The final sprint. Then came last Tuesday. I came home from work with takeout from her favorite Thai place. She was picking out a salad in the kitchen, not really looking at me. Hey, you okay? I asked. Not feeling the pad, see you? She pushed her salad away and sighed, a deep, theatrical sound that I now realize was a rehearsal. Jason, we need to talk. My stomach did a little flip, the 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse. Okay, I said, sitting down. What's up? This whole wedding thing, it's a lot. It's so final, she said, staring at her perfectly manicured nails. And I've been thinking, I love you, but am I just comfortable? I only have one life to live, you know? I feel like I need to explore my options before we get married. I just stared at her. Explore her options. Like she was browsed for a new car. The words hung in the air, stinking up the room. The smell of betrayal, I guess, is a mix of wilted lettuce and broken promises. There was a hurt there, a sharp, sudden jab under my ribs. But something else rose faster, a strange, cold clarity. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't ask who the options were, though a handsome, vapid personal trainer from her gym named Jeffrey immediately came to mind. I just nodded slowly. Okay, Stephanie, I said, my voice even. I hear you. You should absolutely explore your options. Go ahead. She looked surprised, maybe even a little disappointed by my lack of drama. Really? You're okay with that? You've made your position clear? I said, standing up and putting the untouched Thai food in the fridge. I understand completely. She gave me a tentative smile. Thank you for being so mature about this. I didn't reply. I went into our home office and shut the door. And then I explored my own options. My option was to accept what she said as the end. Not a pause, not a break. The end. She wanted to explore? Fine. The foundation of our life together was now void. My thought process was simple. A person who is committed to a life with me doesn't need to explore options. Therefore, we are no longer committed. Therefore, all plans and financial agreements based on that commitment are now null. It took about an hour. The wedding venue, the crown jewel. We'd put down a $10,000 non-refundable deposit. I had put it down from my savings account. I pulled up the contract. It was in my name, paid from my card. I called the events manager. Hi Laura, it's Jason. Calling about our wedding. Yes, it's a shame. We're going to have to cancel. I told her I understood the deposit was lost. She was very gracious. The caterer, same deal. A $2,500 deposit, my card, my name on the contract. I sent a polite, formal email. Canceled, forfeited the deposit. Ouch, but necessary. The photographer and band, repeat the process. 2 more emails, 2 more lost deposits, the cost of severing a future. The honeymoon, a 2-week trip to Italy, flights and hotels booked. Luckily, I'd sprung for the travel insurance. I logged in and initiated the cancellation claim, citing unforeseen personal circumstances. The apartment, the lease is in both our names, but I pay 70% of the rent and all the utilities from my account because I earn significantly more. I can't break the lease, but I can stop the overpayment. I recalculated my portion of the rent to be exactly 50%. I changed the auto transfer to her for household expenses to 0. Shared subscriptions. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, family plan. All mine. I logged out of all devices and changed the passwords. Her late-night binge-watching would now require her own dime. I didn't do it out of anger. It wasn't revenge, not really. It was just admin. Tying up loose ends. Realigning my finances to reflect my new reality as a single person. She wanted to be a free agent. I was simply formalizing her new status. I slept on the couch that night. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up, probably off to her first exploration. Good for her. The quiet lasted for 2 days. Then, this afternoon, my phone rang. It was Stephanie. I let it go to voicemail. The text came a minute later. Stephanie, the venue just called me confirming our cancellation. Our cancellation? What the hell, Jason? Call me now. I looked at the text. I thought about the thousands of dollars I had just set on fire. I thought about her wanting to have her cake and let me pay for it too. I texted back a single sentence. Me, I thought you were exploring your options? I decided to explore mine as well. A storm is coming, but for the first time in days, the air in here feels clean. Update 1. Well, the storm made landfall. Thanks for all the comments and DMs. It's good to know I'm not crazy for, listening to what someone says and acting on it. So where were we? Yes, the cancellation text. Stephanie's response was a string of frantic misspelled messages that I'll summarize for you. Are you insane? Those were non-refundable. That was our future. How could you be so destructive? The lack of self-awareness was and continues to be breathtaking. She showed up at the apartment that evening, and she didn't come alone. She brought her first option with her, Jeffrey, the gym trainer. I guess he was her emotional support himbo. I opened the door and found them standing there, Stephanie looking like she was ready to breathe fire, and Jeffrey looking smug, like he'd won a prize he didn't realize he now had to feed and house. Jason, you have to fix this, she said, pushing past me into the living room. Jeffrey followed, puffing his chest out. There's nothing to fix, Stephanie, I said calmly, closing the door. We're not getting married. The wedding is canceled. I didn't say I was calling it off, she shot back. I said I needed to explore. Do you know how embarrassing it was to get that call? To have to explain to Jeffrey that our venue was gone? I glanced at Jeffrey. He was inspecting my bookshelf, probably looking for a protein shaker. I can't imagine, I said dryly. Jeffrey, my apologies. The free bar at my expense is no longer on the table. He just grunted. This isn't a joke. Stephanie's voice was getting shrill. That was a $10,000 deposit. My parents helped with that. This was news to me. Really? Because my bank statement says the full amount came from my account. They gave me cash. For my half. It's all mixed together. This is a classic Stephanie move. Her finances are a magical mystery tour of vague contributions and assumed support. Okay, I said, pulling out my phone. So if your parents gave you $5,000 in cash for the venue, just transfer it to my account and we'll call it even for that portion. I'll happily eat my own $5,000 loss. She stared at me, mouth opening and closing like a fish. I don't have it right now. I used it for things. Things? I asked. I knew exactly what things. New outfits for her dates with Jeffrey, probably. Well, when you find it, let me know. In the meantime, the cancellation stands. Then Jeffrey decided to speak. Bro, not cool, he said, stepping forward. You're stressing her out. You should just call them back. Uncancel it for her. Bro, I replied, matching his tone. She came to me and effectively ended our 5-year relationship. Did she mention that part to you? Or did she just mention the part where I was supposed to keep funding the party while she tried out a new dance partner? The silence was delicious. Jeffrey looked at Stephanie, a flicker of confusion on his face. It wasn't like that, she insisted. You're twisting my words. I just needed space. And I'm giving it to you, I said. Lots of it. In fact, we need to talk about this space. I gestured around the apartment. The lease is up in 4 months. I won't be renewing it with you. We need to figure out who is moving out, or if we're terminating early, which will cost us. Stephanie's face went pale. Move out? But where would I go? Jeffrey, to his credit, looked deeply uncomfortable. This was clearly more than he signed up for. He thought he was just the fun side piece, not the primary stakeholder in an impending housing crisis. I don't know, Stephanie, I said, and here a little bit of the hurt crept back into my voice. You were so sure about exploring your options. I just assumed you had a plan for what you'd do if one of those options meant you couldn't come home to me anymore. She burst into tears. It was her go-to weapon, and for 5 years it worked every time. But something inside me had been cauterized. I just felt tired. I'm going to stay with a friend for a few days, I said, grabbing a duffel bag I'd already packed. I suggest you and Jeffrey use this time to figure out your next steps. I've already spoken to the landlord about the process for one of us to vacate the lease. I'll forward you the email. I walked out, leaving them standing in the middle of a life I had paid for, a life she had just torched. As I closed the door, I heard her wail. He canceled the Spotify account. How am I supposed to live like this? Somehow, I think she'll manage. Update 2. It appears the figure it out phase is not going well for Team Stephanie Jeffrey. The past couple of weeks have been a masterclass in manipulative tactics and escalating entitlement. It's almost impressive. First, the parental units were deployed. Her mom, Sharon, called me. She started sweet. Jason, honey, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Stephanie is just overwhelmed. She says foolish things when she's stressed. Sharon, she was very clear, I said, sticking to the script. She needed to explore her options. I respected that choice. But you didn't have to cancel everything. Her father and I are so disappointed. We gave her money for that wedding. I'd be happy to see the bank transfer for that, Sharon, I replied politely, because all the deposits came from my accounts. If you can show proof of contribution, I'll have my lawyer draft an agreement to reimburse you for that specific amount once the apartment situation is settled. The word lawyer was like a splash of cold water. Oh, well, I'm sure we don't need to get lawyers involved. Can't you just be a gentleman about this? Her tone had turned icy. Being a gentleman, in this case, means respecting her stated desire to end our engagement. I'm sorry, but my decision is final. I hung up. Next came the social offensive. A few of our mutual friends started hitting me up. Hey man, Stephanie's telling everyone you just dumped her and canceled the wedding out of the blue. Said you had a total meltdown. This is where my methodical nature paid off. I hadn't just canceled things, I had saved the conversation. Meet a friends. Hey guys, I know you're hearing some wild stuff. All I can say is this whole thing started when she told me she needed to explore her options before marrying me. Pic attached. I just took her at her word. Hope you can understand. I sent them the screenshot of my final text exchange with Stephanie. The one where she asked what the hell I was doing? And I replied that I was exploring my options too. Radio silence from most of them. My real friends, like my buddy Edward, just replied with a string of laughing emojis and a dinner on me tonight. The herd was thinning itself. But the main event was the apartment. After a week of me staying with Edward, I came back to get more of my stuff. And I found something interesting. A credit card bill on the kitchen counter. It was a card under my name, for which she was an authorized user. I had completely forgotten about it in my initial sweep, my mistake. I picked it up. The charges were illuminating. A series of nice dinners for two at fancy restaurants, a weekend hotel stay in a nearby quaint little town, all dated before her little "I need to explore" speech. So this wasn't an exploration. It was a full-blown expedition that had been underway for a while, funded by me. For the first time since this all started, I felt a hot surge of genuine anger. The calm broke. It wasn't about the money. It was the absolute profound disrespect, the sheer audacity. I took a deep breath, methodical, strategic. I didn't confront her. I just took pictures of the entire statement. Then I went online and removed her as an authorized user, effective immediately. The card was now just a useless piece of plastic with her name on it. Then I sat down and drafted an email to both her and Jeffrey, who, according to Instagram, was now her official new partner. Subject: apartment lease and outstanding debts. Stephanie, Jeffrey, hope you are well. As we need to resolve the apartment lease, I've attached the form from the landlord to have a name removed. Since you two are now a couple, I assume you'd like to take it over. You'll need to prove a joint income sufficient to cover the rent. Please have this submitted by the end of the week. Additionally, Stephanie, I've just settled the attached credit card bill. It appears you were already exploring your options on my dime before our conversation. I've calculated the total for these personal expenses to be $1,857.34. I've deducted your half of the security deposit to cover part of this. You can pay the remaining balance to me directly to avoid further action. I consider this matter a theft, and I am prepared to file a small claims case as well as a police report if necessary. Let's handle this cleanly and quickly. Regards, Jason. I hit send. The anger subsided, replaced by that cold, quiet hum again. This is no longer a breakup, it's a business transaction, and I have all the receipts. Final update. It's been a while. The dust has not only settled, it's been swept away, and the floors have been polished. I'm writing this from my new apartment, which is blissfully, entirely my own. The last 6 months were a slow, painful, and occasionally hilarious unraveling of Stephanie and Jeffrey's grand romance. My email, as you can imagine, went over like a lead balloon. Stephanie's response was a flurry of rage-filled texts accusing me of being a petty, vindictive monster. She claimed the charges on the credit card were joint expenses. The romantic hotel for two was apparently a business trip she forgot to tell me about. Jeffrey, predictably, went completely silent. He was not about to get entangled in her debt. They couldn't qualify for the apartment lease on their own. Jeffrey's income as a personal trainer was inconsistent, and Stephanie's part-time job as a social media coordinator wasn't enough. They missed the landlord's deadline. I had already submitted my paperwork to take over the lease myself, which was approved. I then gave them a formal, legally required 30-day notice to vacate my now solely leased apartment. The panic that set in was glorious to behold from a distance. Stephanie tried one last time showing up at my office. It was a bold move, I'll give her that. She was crying, saying she'd made a terrible mistake, that she was scared and alone, and that Jeffrey was not the man she thought he was. He doesn't get it, she sobbed in the lobby. He thinks I should just ask my parents for money. He doesn't understand that you always just took care of things. Yes, I did, I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. And you decided you wanted to explore other options. This is what the other option looks like, Stephanie. It looks like you having to take care of your own things. I told her I would not be changing my mind and that security would escort her out if she didn't leave. She left. The final fallout was a series of sad little pops rather than a big bang. The debt. Stephanie's parents ended up paying me the $1,857.34 after I sent them a final letter of demand along with a draft of the small claims court filing. I have a feeling that was a very unpleasant family conversation. The apartment. She and Jeffrey moved out on the last possible day, leaving the place a mess. I documented everything, and the cleaning fees ate up the remainder of her security deposit. They moved into a tiny, dumpy apartment across town. I heard through the grapevine their relationship didn't survive the financial strain and the downgrade in lifestyle. They broke up about 2 months ago. The friends, the social circle firmly split. Once the full story and the credit card statements made the rounds, most people saw her actions for what they were. Her narrative of me being a crazy ex who pulled the rug out from under her just didn't hold up. The wedding deposits, I lost that money. About $15 all told. It hurts, but I consider it the price of my freedom. A very expensive, but ultimately worthwhile lesson. I did hear from the venue manager, Laura, a couple of months back. She called to say how sorry she was about how things worked out and mentioned the barn was rebooked for my original date. By a really sweet couple, she said. They seemed so sure about each other. It didn't even sting. I just said, I'm happy for them, and I meant it. As for me, I'm doing better than okay. I took the money I would have spent on a wedding and went on that trip to Italy by myself. I ate gelato in Florence, explored ruins in Rome, and hiked between the towns of Cinque Terre. I realized I'm pretty good company. Stephanie is still in town, working her job, living in her small apartment. I see her posts sometimes, lots of inspirational quotes about new beginnings and finding yourself. There is, of course, no mention of the wreckage she caused. In her story, she'll always be the victim, and I'll be the villain who wouldn't finance her journey of self-discovery. And that's fine. She can have her story. I have my life back. There was no big dramatic confrontation where she admitted her faults, no satisfying moment of apology. Justice wasn't loud. It was quiet. It was the silence of a canceled credit card. It was the formal language of a lease termination. It was the natural, unavoidable consequence of her own choices. She wanted to explore her options, and I simply gave her the freedom to do so, with all the costs that entailed. That, I've found, is a satisfaction all its own. Time to move forward.